Hi friends, David here from Learn Stage Lighting, and today I'm really excited to go to the next level and for 2022 have an updated version of how to begin with lasers. Lasers are a really great way to expand your lighting rig and create some new stuff in your lighting that you didn't have before. Now you can see behind me, you can probably see here, we've got a couple lasers rolling. They look really stinking cool. One's doing some air effects, one is on the wall. Let's talk about it. So when it comes to lasers, I would say the value that they really bring to the table is that when you're at the point where your lighting rig's pretty saturated, like you have, moving spots that cover each spot on your stage, you have some front wash lights, maybe some moving wash lights, maybe something on your backdrop. You've kind of got a saturated look of lights. Once you've done that, it's now time to go, okay, if I were to buy something new, I could either go, and this applies to bands, DJs, and churches even, it really applies across the way. You say, I could go and buy another couple moving heads for a couple $1,000 a piece, right? And it would make a marginal impact. It would make a small impact. Or, what about a laser? I mean, look at this behind me. So I've got my Gamma TX5 moving head on my backdrop that I always have. I've got my little eliminator pars. Of course, it's a really small space. But these guys, even with the window open with this light coming through, these two laser cubes that are not expensive lasers cut right through. And that's what I think what really gets you going on lasers is that you can go in, like here, I'm in the Laser OS software because it's really stinking easy to use. And you can do things that look cool as beams. I mean, look at that on the camera. We'll bring up the other camera here as well. And so you could do things that look cool beams. You've got full color mixing. And, let me turn off, let me see which laser's which. And you can also project it onto a surface. And so you can put, animations on there, right? People dancing and, all kinds of goofy stuff. I mean, there's so much in this app. And so, you can tell people what way to go. And so for a lot of people, if you're a band or a church or whatever, you might say, oh, that's really stinking cool. The fact that I can have all these projections on a surface, or I can have it through the air, or a bit of both, right? I can get the best of both worlds. And so that's what we want to talk about here today is how do you get started with lasers? How do you get some basic control of them? And what does this all look like? Okay, so when it comes to the basics, if you're in the US here, the first thing you need is a variance, which is like a driver's license for lasers. Now, if you go through somebody like X Laser, who just is an awesome company, they didn't sponsor this or anything, but if you buy a laser through them, such as the Laser Cube or any of their other lasers, they either bundle them or will sell you for $50, I think, the ability, we'll double check this, the ability to get your easy variance through them. Okay, yeah, $50. And when you get your variance through X Laser, it's a lot easier to fill out the paperwork and to renew it. Okay, so definitely a big fan of the process there. Other than that, X Laser gives you all the info you need. The day-to-day, like when you're using this laser, it's very simple. Quick design as to how you're going to set this up. You follow a checklist. It's a setup safe, test everything, and then you're ready to rock and roll. It's not any more complicated than that. So once you get your variance and you understand the basic steps, you got a binder. I've got a binder up there with a bunch of stuff in it. What's the next step? Well, the next step is controlling your lasers, and there's a couple ways to do that. I've got these laser cubes behind me. These are two laser cubes, okay? The Laser Cube is a cool imported from China product, but X Laser brings them into the US and they make them compliant. That gives you the ability to do any animation on a laser. Okay, now the trouble with lasers and what makes lasers difficult to control as lighting people is the fact that you can do images. It's like a video projector, but it's not, right? It can't do like, it can't project, like you can try to do really complicated things. And as you get more complicated, like we'll just go and make a really complicated little beam here. You start to get, as you start to draw more and more things, the laser can't keep up anymore. Yeah, that's a good one. And it starts getting kind of stroby, okay? And you've probably seen this with lasers before if you've watched lasers. And so that's like, it's like a video projector, but it's not quite video. But it cuts through like nothing else does. Okay? It really does. You know, I mean, look at that projection. Whether it's a through the air effect or an on the surface effect, the fact that you can see it even with a decent amount of daylight or stage wash in the room means you can really get a lot done with it. Okay? And so, big fan of those. Really big fan of those. And so, I mean, there's so much good stuff in here. I should stop clicking around. And so, you know, that's what makes lasers cool, is that it's this tool where you can get all this control. So how do you control it? Well, Laser OS, this app, is the most basic. The current lasers, and again, not sponsored, they have these Wi-Fi ones that have Wi-Fi and LAN on them. Okay, so there's a couple ways to do it. The kind of old school way of controlling lasers, as you'll see on the screen here, is this plug here. This is called an ILDA plug, and it's a signal with these big, thick, super expensive cables, you know, as far as cable goes. I mean, it's like a billion pin cable or 20. You get ILDA, and it works with programs like QuickShow, and I believe there's a couple other ones from Pangolin, as well as maybe some other brands. And those apps work a lot like Laser OS, where, you know, they're more complex, but you basically draw out shows. I mean, Laser OS, there's a timeline here too, where you can drag stuff on there. I think the timeline here is technically only in beta, but you know, you bring stuff into the show. You bring text, like here it says line stage lighting. Hey, look at that. You know, and you set it all up, and then you fire that stuff off. Either via a lighting console, and I did make a video on, you can find it on Show Cockpit's website. I know it's on my YouTube here somewhere, and we'll link to it here, that shows you how to do a MIDI to ArtNet trigger to control this from any console. I used Onyx, of course, because one of my favorites. But it basically converts, shoots MIDI out of Show Cockpit, converts it from ArtNet, and then MIDI controls Laser OS. And the cool thing about that is then you can pick your patterns, right? You can have all these different patterns. You can fire them. You can have these power knobs controlled, which is a big part, because then you have intensity control. You know, then you're able to go, okay, get the pattern ready, fade it in, right? If you're busking a show or whatever you're doing, okay? And so if you're using like ILDA control or Laser OS, it's going to work kind of like that. I think a lot of the ILDA programs have DMX input where you can map DMX. Like here, you set hotkeys or MIDI in the Pangolin or whatnot. The laser programs, which I'm not as familiar with, I know you can bring in a DMX trigger. When you fire that DMX command, it fires it in the software. And so the benefit to controlling lasers with a program, kind of an external laser program, is the ability to do things, you know, like the text or a clock or, you know, any kind of picture, right? Any kind of picture. The other way to control lasers is via DMX. Now, this is going to vary. How complex you can get is going to vary depending on what kind of system you have. Okay, like these laser cubes, I think it's in beta right now. They have a version where you can put them in an ArtNet mode and you get like 10 channels of control. And this can be like a lot of cheaper lasers. Like, for example, I have one of these X-Laser Calientes, which is just a inexpensive little scanny laser. And these ones just kind of scan back and forth. You know, you get 10 DMX channels, you can make some patterns. Okay, but you can do a lot more than that if you use something like X-Laser's Mercury. So X-Laser's Mercury, and we'll put some video up here again from our courses inside of Learn Stage Lighting Labs, is a system that they set up that's basically like a little media server built into the laser. And what that does for you is it allows you to select the color and then select like gobos that are different patterns. But then you can have different layers. They call them builders inside of Mercury, where you can have different things being set up on different layers and fade between them, or bring in all the layers at once to be able to add gobos, add prisms, basically work with the laser like it's a light, or two lights, or three lights, because it can look that way when it's shooting through the air. And so the basic gist here, the Mercury lasers, just to show you, are not really, the basic ones aren't any more expensive than the laser cubes, right? Because the laser cube, they've got the little basic Wi-Fi 1.2 watt, which is okay for smaller venues, but then the 2.5 watt is like not that much more. And then the Pro just has the ILDA control, I believe. And so the 2.5 watts definitely like the best buy, but you can get a 2 watt X laser Skyrider for, not that, a couple hundred more bucks. Okay. And so what does that do? Well, that's the basis of, that's the lowest level Mercury laser. And I had demoed one of these. I tested one, used it, got to play around with it last year, and we'll take some video of it here. And these are stinking cool because they allow you to get that Mercury mode. So it just takes ArtNet indirectly. It actually can be a DMX node, I believe. And you're able to get it inside of your lighting console, get all those gobos, and be able to have basically almost an infinite number of gobos inside of like a moving light. Move it around, prisms, and it cuts through like nothing else. I think that's the biggest part. So I'm going to pause there because that is the basics of lasers for stage lighting. You need a variance, and then it's ideal if you're kind of already saturated with lights and you're looking for something that's going to punch through and make an extra impact. Because lasers don't have to be just an effect that is one of those, oh, look at me, I'm a laser. Like I say, it doesn't have to be one of those effects that just draws attention to the laser, but it can actually add to your show and be like a light that you fade in and out. Okay, so in our next video, we're going to hop into the visualizer, look at some Mercury lasers in the midst of a lighting rig, and show you how you really can use it. So it's not like just the centerpiece of the show, but it's part of the show, and how a single laser can make a really big impact on your show. So if you have any questions, we're here for you at LearnStageLighting.com and LearnStageLightingGear.com. We don't have the lasers listed, but I believe we can get them through our distributor. So if you're interested in lasers, you're like, oh, that's something interesting to me, let us know. We would love to get you a quote and just help you be able to learn through the labs and get you the laser if you're interested. If not, hey, hop into the next video. No worries if you're not ready right now, or ever. Because I just want to be able to teach you here, give you the tools. And if you ever need any help finding a laser, a light, anything specific like that, hop over to Learn Stage Lighting Gear. Let us know, and we'll help you for both via gear, via Learn Stage Lighting Labs. We're here for you. Thank you so much, and we'll see you guys in our next video.